Hey, good afternoon, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am your host, Courtney C. We are Crime Crunchies, and you are my true crime hungry crunchies. If I can talk today, you're my hungry crunchies. So, as we get going, please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share as we are a new channel and we always need that algorithm. So, I hope everybody is having a great week. It is Friday. Thank goodness I'm traveling. I'm in a hotel room, so I have my not normal setup right now, but I thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to go live because it's been a few days. Um, and things have kind of slowed down a little bit, but there have been a few updates. We're going to watch a couple videos today. I still have some thoughts about the timeline. I have some comments to make about a few things that I haven't talked about before, and also some comments that I want to make about Sheriff Nanos and some of the things that he's been saying. So let's go ahead and watch a video first from Fox News. And again, I try to fluctuate between CNN, Fox, and News Nation to try to get the best coverage. So let's take a look at some of the updates from Fox News. Let me get this on my screen.
Now to an update on the search for Nancy Guthrie as the Pima County Sheriff's Office announces that investigators are looking into the possibility there was an accomplice involved in this case. It comes as a 911 dispatch manager tells Fox News they are being flooded with tips over Guthrie's disappearance.
We have intel and we have investigators on the other side of these calls, basically, that are combing through the thousands of tips that are being received in this center. There has been a few times where we feel that somebody needs to look at this tip, somebody needs to look at this lead immediately. So we will call the appropriate investigators to say, hey, this information was put into the call, but we need somebody to look at this immediately.
The Sheriff's Department also providing an update on clues in the investigation, writing, quote, the only item that has been positively identified is the Ozark backpack. Investigators are working to determine where the other items may have been purchased. Former Pinal County, Arizona Sheriff Mark Lamb joins me now. Sheriff Lamb, thank you so much for joining us. So we now know officially that investigators are looking at more than one person being involved in this case, which echoes what FBI Director Kash Patel had previously said when he used the phrase persons of interest. So how significant is this detail to you?
Well, Carly, I think that there's been an accomplice all the way along, whether it was somebody that gave inside information as to where she would be, where the cameras were on the house. These are tough crimes to pull off by yourself, a one-person thing. I firmly believe that there's been an accomplice all along. And that's going to make it, I think, a little bit easier eventually to find some resolution to this case, especially now that they've increased the reward for information. You can see the amount of calls that are coming in because of that. And all it takes is one lead to break this case open.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's easier to.
I'm going to stop this really quick because I just want to make sure that you guys are able to hear my sound. There had been a glitch with YouTube before. So if somebody can just put a 1 in their comment box or just let me know if you're able to hear the volume. Again, there had been a glitch with some sound with YouTube. So if you could just let me know if you're able to hear the sound of this video. I had a video, 2 videos actually, where I was playing clips and nobody could hear the sound. So if you could just let me know if you can hear the sound, that would be great. I'm going to go back to the video and I'll take a look for your comments.
To find 2 people than 1, 3 people even in better, because the more people, the more mistakes that can be made. And also I wanted to bring this up because President Trump, he spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One yesterday and brought up the extreme interest and high publicity surrounding this case and what that could do to the investigation. Listen to this.
I didn't like when they were talking about going after the pacemaker and before they even started going after it, they're coming and reporting it. So if in fact they could do it that way, the person would say, well, I'm not going to let that happen, right? So bad things would happen if he did not going to let that happen. I can't imagine why they would have done that. And just in terms of strategy, just one little piece, I don't know, but we have to start reporting on other subjects also and see what happens. It's a very sad situation.
Something I wonder too, Sheriff Lamb, we're all following every single detail and every nugget of this case as investigators are giving us this information or it's being uncovered, but that also means that the kidnappers are as well. You know, we know about the pacemaker, the backpack. So psychologically, you have to wonder what that does to somebody who has committed a crime.
Well, not only does it put an immense amount of pressure on the suspects involved in this case, or suspect, I think it's suspects, but it also, with this 24-hour coverage, I've talked about this. This has made this case extremely difficult for the sheriff's office and then the FBI, who's helping the sheriff's office, because everything they do is being publicized 24/7, which does give a little tip off to that. I agree with the president. When I first saw this helicopter, first I thought it was a great idea. I do have some issues with it as it encroaches on some Fourth Amendment violations for the people that are not involved. But at the same time, I thought, why would you tell the public that they're using this tool? Because now the suspects could then make adjustments, hide her in a basement, you know, put some type of signal blocking Faraday bag in place that would keep her from being able to be found. So I agree. I don't think that this was great to tip off the general public about the tools that they're using to try to find her.
Yeah, and one of those details Sheriff knows says they currently do not have any video from additional cameras at Nancy Guthrie's home, but it is in the hands of Google, which is good news that there could be more video evidence and footage coming out. It certainly is something notable that we will be looking out for. Sheriff Lamb.
All right, so that is an update, and I'm not surprised that they're talking about how many. There we go. Sorry about that. Again, I'm not in my regular studio, so yeah, I'm not surprised that they're talking about the leaks because this is like leak central. We're talking, if this was a boat, the boat would have been at the bottom of the ocean with the Titanic right now. But I also have to say that the sheriff is not doing any press conferences. They could have their, press information or public information officer, PIO, to do some, conferences with the media, because the more the media is interested in this case, because it is so high, it's just a high profile case with Savannah Guthrie. And the fact that nothing makes sense is making people even more interested in this. I think, honestly, they could have controlled this a little bit. The sheriff seems like he's more interested in doing these one-on-one conferences instead of just one press conference and getting out, true situations. So I don't think that the sheriff has really helped the situation. This entire investigation feels like it's really gotten out of control from the sheriff. And I actually heard just a little while ago that from Brian Enton that supposedly the New York Post is saying that it's very possible the sheriff could be handing this case over to the FBI, and that would actually probably be really, really helpful. So I wanted to also talk about how the search has gone south of the border because of, and I think this has to do with the note that TMZ had gotten with the indication that the FBI needed to prepare to start looking internationally. Plus, the way that the suspect came up to the door with the pew holster kind of in front. Somebody was calling that a Mexican carry. I might have that wrong, but just the way that that was positioned doesn't look like a normal way that somebody would have a holster around their belt. So let's take a look and see what's going on south of the border and take a listen to this. And then I've got some, we're going to look at the timeline next. And I have, again, more thoughts I'm going to go into.
The urgent search for Nancy Guthrie now headed south of the border. Sources telling News Nation that the FBI is following leads into Mexico at this point, while hundreds of investigators dig through evidence here in the United States. Let's go out to News Nation national correspondent Jess Cartalia, who is live in Tucson. Jess, Nancy's home, I mean, you do the math, you drive, it's really not that far from the Mexican border.
No. No, it's actually incredibly close. So, as you mentioned, yeah, they are taking those leads now south of the border. Marky, a source close to the investigation, tells us here at News Nation that the FBI has contacted Mexican authorities in connection with this case. Now, this tells us that investigators are casting a wider net. They're following leads that take them across the border. So, you can see on this map, Guthrie's home here in the Catalina foothills of Tucson is just 75 miles. That's an hour and a half drive to the border crossing at Nogales. Arizona sees about an average of 8,000 people coming here into the U.S. every day. Strict checks are done when you come into the country, but it's pretty easy to travel south into Mexico without being stopped. In this map of the border wall, I want to show you there's about 100-mile stretch. There it is. That you can see without a border wall, right? That's like right along the Arizona and Mexico border. So that means someone who really knows this terrain can cross from Arizona into Mexico without having to cross at an official point of entry. It's now been 19 days. Wow, it's hard to believe, since Guthrie vanished without a trace. And this footage has been their strongest lead to date. There are more than 400 members of law enforcement from 11 different agencies working on this case. And now that coordination appears to include Mexican law enforcement partners. Marky, we know that Nancy Guthrie requires medication. And in Mexico, you can purchase prescription drugs over the counter. The Pima County Sheriff and, as we know, Guthrie's family members do believe that she is still alive.
So that tells me a couple things. Let me take this off. So that tells me a couple things. If they think that she's still alive, this again with the video. Hold on, there we go. The video that they got of the suspect coming into the house, it has to make me think that they've got video of them leaving the house with Nancy. And I'm going to look up some pictures. Suspect backpack and no backpack, because apparently Kash Patel had posted pictures of the suspect. In the video, he's wearing a backpack that they know is a Walmart Ozark backpack. They have identified that, and no backpack. But then there's a second picture of this guy coming toward the house, and he's not wearing a backpack. I'm trying to find the image of that quickly here. I should have pulled it up earlier. Not seeing it, but let me pull up the timeline because I really want to go through this again. All right, so let's look at the timeline because I have a lot of questions regarding the timeline. So let's go back to the very, very beginning. January 31st, 2026, 5:32 p.m., Nancy travels to local family's home in an Uber. They have talked to the Uber driver, they've swabbed the Uber driver, and they have cleared the Uber driver. 9:48 p.m., family drops Nancy off at home and garage door opens. Now, this is the very first of what I am referring to Sheriff Nano's, I don't want to call it deceit, but it's definitely inconsistent inaccuracies. When somebody is telling the truth, their story stays the same throughout, okay? Sheriff Nanos has said 3 different things about the dropping off of Nancy. I think we've heard that Annie and Tommaso dropped Nancy off. Then there was someone saying Tommaso dropped Nancy off. And then he finally said family dropped Nancy off. So what I've seen from Sheriff Nano, in my opinion, is when he doesn't provide detailed information that's consistent, that tells me there's something there. There's a there. And the fact that the Sheriff Nano's talking about who exactly dropped Nancy off at 9:48 leads me to believe that there's a there. There's something going on with who dropped her off. We don't know. I mean, unless they have it on camera, we only have people's word of who dropped Nancy off. But the other thing that I have to talk about is at 9:48, they have some sort of record that the garage door opens. how do they know the garage door open? Is there an app on somebody's phone? Because a lot of these garage doors, you can use an app. It's called, I think, MyQ. MyQ is an app that typical garage doors you can open with an app on a cell phone. Nancy is 84 years old. Does Annie have the remote on her phone for the garage door opener? Does Annie, or that vehicle, I should say maybe the vehicle, does the vehicle have a clicker, the remote clicker that you push to open Nancy's garage door? Because Nancy supposedly was sharp enough to drive, she had her own vehicle. Nancy probably had a clicker in her car, the SUV that they have taken into evidence. But how did the garage door open on the night of January 31st? Is there a keypad on the side where somebody punches in a code? And the weird thing, I have a huge red flag, and it started immediately that first night between 9:48, where the garage door opens. How does the garage door open? And then the garage door closes 2 minutes later. There, I believe, is a circle drive. It's a bigger property. Nancy Guthrie, again, 84, she can't walk more than 50 feet. I'd said in an earlier video, I kind of made an assumption that Nancy had a walker. And I make that assumption based on nothing that I've heard, but from my own experience. My mother lived with me until she passed away in my home. I took care of her. She was 82 and she couldn't walk very far. She had a walker. She used a walker in the house. I can't imagine if Nancy Guthrie is 84 and has mobility issues and can't walk very far and is frail and has heart issues. I can't imagine that she doesn't have one of the walkers that has the seat that you could sit down in. And again, complete assumption. I've not heard any reporting that she has a walker. I'm just saying that it makes sense that Nancy had a walker. So how is the garage door being opened? And then how is it closing at 9:50 p.m., 2 minutes? I don't know how long it would take somebody with mobility issues, with or without a walker, but having the door open at 9:48 and close 2 minutes later, there's something going on with that. There's something going on with that 2 minutes. I just can't see her scooting her little butt into the house and having the door completely close on the garage just 2 minutes later. Again, completely my assumption, but I don't know. There's something there. I think there's something there. Again, going back, we don't know really who dropped her off. The sheriff has said 2 or 3 different things. When you don't repeat the same thing more than once, it's a sign of deceit. And why would he not just come out and say who dropped her off regularly? I mean, the last thing he said was it was family. Okay. There's something odd about that. Okay. So, I mean, we don't even know if Nancy was dropped off. I mean, that might be taking it a bit too far, but I'm just saying we don't really know. So moving on, February 1st, 1:47 a.m., we've all seen the video of the suspect walking up to the front porch. Doorbell camera is disconnected. And we know that this is from who I call the Walmart Wrangler, because supposedly the items that he's wearing are all from Walmart. So I've just been calling him Walmart Wrangler. So Walmart Wrangler, we've seen him disconnect the doorbell by ripping it off. He's very calm. There's been some insinuation that maybe he was on something. Maybe he was, again, complete assumption, but he's very calm. And considering somebody who doesn't live there, it's very dark, sees a camera, they're very calm. It makes me feel like there was somebody who this person knew was going to be there. The sheriff has been asked directly, how did the suspect make entry into the home? And the sheriff just says, I'm not going to talk about that. And we've seen the front door. It doesn't look like the front door was bashed in. So that tells me somebody let him in. We know the back door was left wide open. This tells me somebody let him in. Maybe they made entrance, the second person made entrance from the back door. Or did the person make entrance through the garage? Does this person have access to the garage? And let me be clear, the sheriff has said that the family has been cleared, that lie detector tests have been used with various people. I'm assuming that they did lie detector tests with the family. The family has been cleared, but Occam's razor. If anyone has ever heard of Occam's razor is basically here I've got AI pulled up on the Google. Occam's razor is a philosophical and scientific heuristic, often called the law of parsimony, which is fancy for suggesting that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be preferred. Okay. So basically, it's the law of logic that the most common cause is most likely what has happened, Occam's razor. So by the suspect walking up to the front door and being very calm, and I'm just thinking, I'm an empath, so I'm thinking about, okay, human behavior. If I'm really calm and I'm going to be getting into a house, I don't see him carrying a crowbar. The backpack is stuffed full. We don't know what with, but he's very, very calm. We know that the front door was not busted into or broken into. If I'm that calm, it's because I'm meeting my buddy. My buddy, we have a plan, and I know my buddy's there. My buddy knows the layout of everything. My buddy is coming to let me in. That's exactly what that calm exterior, this guy, he knows there's a plan. My buddy is going to open the door and we're going to go in together. That's what that tells me. My buddy has somehow got access to this home and I know he's going to let me in. So does my buddy have a way of getting in through the garage? Does my buddy have a key or some way of getting into the back door? Again, no windows were broken, just no. So this tells me that there's a second person that was in charge of gaining entrance into the home. And the guy on the front porch, his job was to be there, to go in the front, probably knew there was a ring doorbell. The guy's completely covered. He came prepared, very organized, tries to pull the camera down, turns around and gets the shrubbery, and then comes back, looks like a doofus, not a professional. Okay. And then the doorbell camera disconnects at 1:47. 2:12 a.m. So this is 25 minutes later. Software detects person on camera. No video available, no subscription. So where is this person detected? And we know that Google has helped them. So is this the person going back out the front? We know Nancy went back out the front because we've seen the blood there. It looked like aspirated blood being coughed up, sprayed out of the mouth. And the way that the drops fell 90 degrees, I mean, it's just, we know she went out. And the sheriff, again, has stated very clearly that she left the house under resistance. And so, again, I think they've seen video of her being taken out of the house alive. But 2:28 a.m., so this is 13:41 minutes total from entry. Pacemaker app shows disconnect from phone. So we've got the Apple Watch on the bedside table, and doesn't sound like a lot was taken from the house. And a typical kidnap for ransom or even a burglary, they're in and they're out. What's going on for 41 minutes in the house? And they're walking around, obviously outside, because somebody's been picked up on camera at 2:12. These people are very comfortable. She has been somehow subdued. And I don't want to put this out there. I'm not gonna, I mean, I guess it's an assumption, but this is on the table. Was this an SA? Is SA included? Because again, the sheriff will not share anything that happened in the house. We know that somebody popped Nancy in the face or the head or the mouth somewhere. And for them to be walking around for 41 minutes, that's a long time to be in the house. Something else that I didn't know that I heard on the interview room, apparently Nancy had hearing aids and the hearing aids were left in the home. So she has, I guess she's hard of hearing and she may not have heard the people come in. I originally thought, just from, again, my own experience, my own mother living with me, I mean, she would be up microwaving popcorn at 2 a.m, up and down, going pee all night, whatever. That maybe Nancy heard people rumbling around in the house and went and sought them out in the dark house. But she could have just been surprised in her bed, asleep, not having heard them because she wears hearing aids. So again, 41 minutes in a house for either a professional burglary hit or a professional kidnapping is hella long, okay? This makes me wonder, and again, I would not want this on anybody, my worst enemy, but is there SA involved? What were they doing for 41 minutes, considering they came with something? There was something in that backpack, it was full, but it seems like they only left with Nancy. And again, going back to why Nancy? Why Nancy? If they wanted to get money for a ransom, kidnap for ransom, why would they take the 84-year-old woman? If they're targeting Savannah Guthrie, why take the 84-year-old who has mobility issues, hard of hearing, can't walk, on drugs, or not drugs, pills, medication, okay, for her heart? If they wanted to get to Savannah Guthrie, why wouldn't they take the sister? She's younger, she's mobile. It's going to hurt just as much. Somebody's taken my sister. And again, I always have to be very clear. I would not want the sister taken. I'm just trying to analyze, why not take the sister? She seems like she would be easier to keep alive if this is a kidnap for ransom. Why take the 84-year-old that frankly is a pain in the ass to have to wheel around? 150 pounds of unconscious Nancy Guthrie, very heavy to get out. It is a two-person job. Okay, definitely a two-person job. That's why I definitely agree with the idea that there is at least one other person involved in this. The person I think that's involved in this is, the mastermind that's behind all this is somebody very close to Nancy. And we've heard 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. This person is either 1 degree separated from Nancy or no more than 2 degrees, okay? 1 degree separated from Nancy, again, goes back to the family. And I know the family has been cleared, and somebody had raised a really good question or point, is the vehicle was taken into evidence. Annie and Tommaso's vehicle was taken into evidence. Has that vehicle been returned? If the vehicle has not yet been returned and that their personal vehicle is still in evidence, that tells me they're still suspects. I don't know that I necessarily trust Sheriff Nano to be revealing his hand if a family member honestly is still a suspect. Has the car been returned to Annie and Tommaso? 1 point of separation from Nancy would be somebody in her A tier, a family member. It could be a healthcare worker, the pool person, someone that knows Nancy, talks to Nancy, has been in Nancy's house, has been around Nancy's house and knows where the cameras are, possibly been reconned or been watched for some time. That would be the 1 point of separation from Nancy, is someone who's in her A tier. 2 points of separation would be somebody who knows a healthcare worker who's been in the house and knows the layout and has shared this information and says, hey, I work for this old lady. She's got money. She's got this in her house. She's got jewelry. Here's the layout. Here's the plan. You guys go do this. Okay. There's no way that this is further than 2 points of separation from Nancy. This is not an untargeted attack or job. This is definitely a first or second degree closeness to Nancy, period. So again, 41 minutes, what's going on in the house? The sheriff won't talk about what happened in the house. So that tells me something happened in the house, okay? Anything he doesn't talk about, like who opened the door, how the guy got into the front door, there's something to it that's a big, big, big tip. So someone let the suspect in the front door. That's huge. What happened in the house? Huge. Okay. We know we've got some DNA from somebody who has not been swabbed because they've gotten swabs from the healthcare workers, the pool guy, the Uber guy, the family, the friends, whatever. Okay. They've got all that. They have the unknown DNA. Where do they get the DNA from? Is it this person's blood? Is it this person's own bodily fluid? And again, this leads me back to, was there SA? Was there something on the bed sheets? All right, it's horrific, but these things can happen. People are sick, okay? I don't know, and they're not talking about where they got this sample and what it is, okay? So it's got to be left on the table, okay? For 41 minutes. And of course, we know that this has not shown up in CODIS. And with the Mexican ties, if this is somebody from Mexico, they're not going to be in CODIS if they don't have a criminal history, but they're going to do genetic genealogy. And if anybody remembers Rachel Marin, she was a woman in the Northeast. Beautiful woman, was jogging in a park that she jogged regularly, and she was red rummed by an immigrant from, I think, Venezuela, and he was not in CODIS, but they had a hit on his DNA from a crime that he did in California. And from this guy he was not, an American citizen, had not come through legally, came through from Venezuela. He was found through genetic genealogy and actually was picked up in Tulsa. So they're going to have to do genetic genealogy with this person. And I'm just saying, don't be surprised if there is still a link back to a family member or someone who's 1 or 2 degrees separated from Nancy. All right. So the morning of February 1st, Nancy would go to her friend's home and watch church services online from a New York church, and it was those people that she was supposed to meet that notified the family that something was wrong. Nancy wasn't answering her phone. She didn't show up for the church service, and they had just confirmed it like the day before. And the family goes to the house, checks on Nancy, and calls Pima County Sheriff's Department, and that's when the everything starts. So here's something new that I've been listening and watching several sources, which I'm sure all of you guys are as well. I did not know this, but after the sheriff department releases the scene at Nancy Guthrie's house, those reporters, including Brian Enton, went up and was filming. We could see the door was in one piece. We could see the blood spatter. There was a card shoved in like next to the door, like a little crack, a little business card sized note from Arizona Adult Protective Services saying that they had stopped by to do a welfare check. So this is where the weirdness comes in, okay? This is where the weirdness, the crazy and shocking weirdness. So then more than one reporter has seen this note left from Arizona Adult Protective Services. And just like there's children protective services that come in and do welfare checks to make sure children are being cared for or fed and not, hurt, they have that for elders because elders can be abused, neglected, taken advantage of, etc. apparently somebody on that same day, Sunday, that Nancy's missing, called Arizona Adult Protective Services on a Sunday, February 1st, and had indicated something, asking for a welfare check on Nancy. So anybody ever heard of a Child Protective Services? And tell me, I might be wrong, but I'm not seeing Adult Protective Services or CPS answering a call on a Sunday and responding that same day and literally walking through, because this was a taped off crime scene. How did Adult Protective Services get through crime scene tape and leave their card during an investigation? That does not seem right to me. Something's fishy, something stinky. That's something not, again, math is not mathing. Adult Protective Services is able to get past crime scene tape on Sunday, February 1st, with the Pima County Sheriff Department in full-on investigation and leave this card on a Sunday when she's only been called in for a couple hours, is missing. So why would a neighbor or a friend, if she's missing, call Arizona Adult Public or Protective Services? Has there been concern that somebody close to Nancy had been taking advantage of her, not taking care of her? And I think that they were taking care of her because she'd just gone to dinner and had an Uber ride. We confirmed that she got an Uber ride. I don't think that there was a problem taking care of Nancy, and the medication was there and everything. I think she's being cared for that way, but was she being taken advantage of enough that maybe these people that she meets to go to church, is she complaining to them about something? My kids are always asking for money, and this is just a scenario. My kids are always asking for money. They spend too much money. They don't make enough money. They live beyond their means. They're going to ask me for money. On January 31st, they go to dinner. They're having games. Did somebody ask Nancy for money? Did Nancy say, no, I'm not going to give you any more money? And they take her home, and then crap hits the fan. I also want to talk about, in the first, I think, 2 or 3 days, I'm pulling this up because, again, according to Google, I wanted to see Derek Kalela or Derek Kalela, a 42-year-old man from Hawthorne, California, was arrested by the FBI for sending fraudulent imposter ransom texts to Annie Guthrie, daughter of missing Nancy Guthrie, and her husband, Tommaso Cioni. On February 4th, this is 3 days after she's reported missing, Kalela allegedly sent messages to the couple, not just to one, but to the couple, reading, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. Did you get the Bitcoin?" So this indicates to me a couple things. I had never heard of Annie Guthrie or Tommaso Cioni. The first time I heard of Tommaso Cioni was Ashley Banfield. Okay, after this whole thing happened, when Ashley Banfield was given a tip from somebody involved in the investigation saying that Tommaso may be at least a person of interest, if not a prime person of interest, okay? Somebody must have known the name Annie Guthrie and or Tommaso Cioni in order to find them, get their phone number, and send them a message. Now, the wording, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." This tells me the way that this is worded, the grammar and the tense. This is a conversation that had already happened. This is a conversation that had already been established. Did you get the Bitcoin? Again, there's not proper punctuation here, but did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. Something's rotten in Denmark. Sorry, but you can't have too many coincidences in a situation like this. In a situation like this, there are no coincidences. The suspect goes to the front door, as calm as a cucumber. Somebody let him in because the sheriff is not addressing how he got in, but the door isn't busted in. And the garage door is open at 9:48 and closes at 9:50 for a woman who can't walk easily. This tells me that someone very close to Nancy has had conversations about Bitcoin, which is weird. I mean, I've never heard the word Bitcoin used so much in my entire life. I have a question here. Thank you, Pee-wee's bike. I love Pee-wee. Pee-wee, hey, Pee-wee, I hope you find your bike. I love Pee-wee. What makes them think she is alive at this point? I don't understand. So, and this is all assumption. If law enforcement, Chris Nanos, the sheriff, has stated that they think she's still alive because of all these different crazy notes, the fact that I believe they have her on camera leaving the home alive. We've gotten several different notes asking for Bitcoin in return for her. The family has used language that they think she's still out there. The FBI would not be trying to still look for her down in Mexico if they didn't think that there was a possibility that she's still alive. I would say at this point, I mean, it could be 50-50 that she's still alive. It could be 90% she's not alive, but there's something that law enforcement has, and they're not playing all their cards, something that they have that's still having them treat like they're looking for her. And again, with the signal sniffer that we've learned about, those pacemakers, they still work even after somebody has passed away. So they're trying to find that signal if her body was dumped. They could still find the pacemaker and sync it. Yes, there is a lot that they're not saying. And the things that they're not saying when they're asked direct questions is where I think the smoking gun is. And again, it goes to exactly how the suspect was let in the front door. I think that there was somebody within 1 degree of separation of Nancy who let that suspect in the front door. And the fact that Annie and Tommaso received a message from the guy who's now been arrested by the FBI for sending fraudulent imposter ransom tests. And the 10 says, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." That indicates that there has been previous conversation about Bitcoin and that there was an understanding with Annie and Tommaso that Bitcoin needed to be sent and that this person was waiting for the Bitcoin. We're waiting on our end. Because it seems crazy to me that they wouldn't be looking for a body at this point unless there was something they wouldn't be saying. And we don't know. They have been, they've had cadaver dogs out. They actually have used, Border Patrol has highly successful dogs that can track live people and cadavers because they hunt people all the time. And the dogs that have been out have not found anything. And again, I believe that the sheriff and or the FBI has video of Nancy Guthrie leaving the house alive. And so it would make sense that they took her south of the border. You don't have to have a passport to go into Nogales, which is across the border, about an hour from Tucson. Brian Enton actually filmed himself asking people in Nogales. he had a translator and was talking with people, asking them if they had heard about Nancy Guthrie. These people had not heard of her. Brian Ettin showed them pictures of her. They said, no, we've not heard anything of her. And they asked if it would be easy or hard to get somebody across the border. And some people said it would be hard to get somebody across the border if they were blindfolded and had a bag over their head. But I don't think that I think that's just in the movies. I don't think they had a blindfold on Nancy. They probably had her in a car, and authorities were not looking for her if they crossed into the border on February 1st. Mexican authorities didn't know to even look for her. And they're not going to be watching cameras, which there are a ton of cameras. They're not going to be looking for her unless there's a bolo. Be on the lookout. And apparently, they have to be alerted first. And they have gone back and they have watched camera footage of people crossing the border. But if they were in like a minivan and had her in the back, they're not going to see who's in the back. Now, I can say Brian Ettin went across the border with his cameraman, Mo, and Daniel, his another coworker from News Nation who helped translate. And Brian Ettin said, I didn't bring my passport on this trip. I don't have a passport. I hope I can get back across. And he did. He got back into America without his passport. So people in Nogales, it's not really made news yet. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that I think it's really, really weird that this Derek Calleja had texted Annie and Tommaso, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. Again, that shows intent, a previous conversation, present tense, future tense, and some sort of an agreement. So again, while the sheriff says that the family has been cleared, I still have, it's just, the math isn't mathing. I would like to know if Annie and Tommaso's car has been returned to them. If it has not, and it's still being held in evidence, then that tells me that at least one or more of them is still a suspect. The fact that the suspect was so calm walking to the house, again, it just made me feel like he's like, my buddy's on the inside. I know he's going to let me in. And I'm helping him with this job because I'm going to get paid too, but I'm really calm because I know my buddy is in charge of this and he knows everything that's going on. And the fact that they were in for 41 minutes, again, that tells me that there could have been some SA because there wasn't much stolen and this is a kidnapping. You want to get in, you want to get out. And the fact that they have unknown DNA, they got it from something. I mean, touch DNA in an entire house is like a needle in a haystack. If they were able to find touch DNA or a smudge on a counter, that would be like a needle in a haystack. So I have to wonder if there wasn't some bodily fluid somewhere that they were able to find. And again, the sheriff is not talking about anything that happened in the house. So that's a red alert for me and how they got in. And again, I just have to say, this looks like an inside job. Sorry, folks. It looks like an inside job. Going back to Occam's razor, the most common path is probably the most common path. And this wasn't just a random target. All right, so we know that there was a black glove that was found 2 miles down and they've run the DNA. I personally think the glove is a nothing burger. There are just so many black gloves that people wear, and I'm going to talk about the glove. So the glove was, the way we see the glove from pictures, it was found on the right side of the road, which means if somebody was panicking and dealing with an 84-year-old woman squirming or screaming in a car and they're losing their mind because things are going crazy, and he ripped the glove off and he tosses it out the window, this shows me that there were definitely 2 people. And the person who threw the glove would have been in the passenger seat. There was a driver. And again, this neighborhood, very dark, no street lights. You have to know where you're going, again, targeted, okay? So the glove that they found down the street, I think it's a nothing burger. I think that the DNA that they found in the house is what's really going to cinch this with the genetic DNA or genetic genealogy, how they found Brian Kohberger. And it's going to take a minute for them to do that family tree. We know that the guy who walked up to the front door doesn't look professional. He looked like he was stoned because he was so calm. He has a leaning left shoulder. They're still working with Walmart. They're dropping those pictures in. They're scanning all of their software to find somebody who walked like that with his gait, picking out perhaps the jacket. We don't think the ski mask was sold in store. That was probably something that they would have had to have purchased online. But Walmart is definitely working with the FBI to help identify people who had purchased at least the backpack, if not the jacket or the ski mask. We know that Apple is helping with this, probably from the phone or the Apple Watch. And the pacemaker company is working with the FBI. And I don't know if maybe there's some technology. It would be so awesome if there was like a GPS in the pacemaker. And I think it would actually be kind of helpful, because how many silver alerts do you see out there? If somebody had a pacemaker, it sure would be nice to be able to locate a loved one from their pacemaker. Why not? I know we don't want to live in a big brother society, but if kids go missing, it would be nice to have some sort of a tracker, in a child, because again, these are people you don't want to have go missing and be able to find them. Just going over some of my notes. Again, I think it's weird that there's a picture of the suspect at the front door without the backpack. The picture of the guy with the backpack that's stuffed full. So, at what point does he take the backpack off? Does he come up to the house first without the backpack and then go out and get the backpack? What's the order of this? The ransom notes, I think, are probably people taking advantage of the situation, asking for the Bitcoin. But I do have to say, again, that I think that there is something to the fact there cannot be coincidences. How is there a coincidence that Annie and Tommaso go to dinner with Nancy? The next day, Nancy's missing. A neighbor or a friend from the church group calls Arizona Adult Protective Services. And because Nancy looked well fed, had her medication, was cared for and clean and all those things, one of the ways that you can abuse an adult is by trying to take advantage of them and get money out of them. And my first thought was that they went to dinner and that Annie and Tommaso asked for money. Nancy probably said no. And this is what happened. If Tommaso was in trouble and this guy is asking him for Bitcoin, that's a coincidence. And in something this big with someone who just, disappears out of the blue, I have to think that, and yes, I agree. Another CG, I bet she said no. Of course she said no. Annie was an author, a poet, and I think she worked at a university, and Tommaso was a school teacher. Probably not a lot of money, but they're living in an expensive home, out in a rural area. It's, again, supposedly they've been cleared, and I have to give a disclaimer, but I'm just not off of it yet. I just am not off of it. There's too many coincidences that it just doesn't make sense that someone that close to Nancy is not involved with this. What do I think about them clearing the family? I don't know if they're saying that they've cleared the family in order to get the microscope off of the family. They could be doing that because this investigation has gone off the rails. Any leak or assumption or presumption immediately gets leaked, and then people like me talk about it. And when you're too close to the target, they've got to get you off of the target. Okay. Saying that the family is cleared is hopefully going to shut people up and say, okay, well, it's not Tommaso, it's not Annie. And that's all I can say. They could be clearing the family to get people to shut up about it because everybody's talking. And again, Occam's razor, it just makes sense that it would be Tommaso. Again, my thing is that they met, they had dinner, they asked for money. She said, no, I'm tired of giving you money. She went home, and this plan, again, why this night? This plan pitched off. Tommaso's freaking out because he's got some guy in California saying, you owe me Bitcoin. Give me my Bitcoin. You owe me money. I got to get that money. So I'm going to go and get my buddy. I'm going to let him in the house. Something happened. And they took her. They could have staged some of these ransom notes asking for Bitcoin, which is really, really odd. The notes to TMZ seem to be from the same person. They're written well. They're written grammatically correct, full sentences. And I want to point out this text from Derek Payea, who sent the text asking for the Bitcoin, is not grammatically correct. The punctuation is wrong. Did you get the Bitcoin? Where, which is spelled wrong. There's no period or comma. Where, there's no apostrophe. Waiting on our end for the transaction. No period. This person did not write the ransom note that went to TMZ. TMZ said their ransom note was written by somebody who's educated and could string a sentence together. So in my assumption, I think that Tommaso would have been the person to make sense to write the ransom note that went to TMZ. Tommaso is in a rock band. Tommaso, anyone in a rock band likes attention. Why would they send a note to TMZ and a news station? Why not to NBC, Savannah Guthrie's station? It screams to me entertainment. TMZ is an entertainment and attention. Pee-wee's bike, like I said too, yes, if it was a random person or robbery gone wrong, why would they take her, keep her alive? So there's got to be something deeper happening. I'll tell you what, if she comes back alive, I mean, I think that the country would probably line up and do the wave. I mean, how amazing would that be? This is just, horrible. And I'm not trying to sound callous. I've spent a lot of, because I feel so bad for Savannah and the brother and the sister and the grandkids. This is horrible. Worst nightmare other than it happening to a child. But there's nobody who would want her to show up alive more. And I think the world is so invested in this because nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. This isn't a professional job. And I think that they're a bunch of dodos, but they've gotten lucky so far. They've gotten lucky, but they're getting zeroed in at. And there's enough people that say this isn't going to go cold. It's just going to take a while. I don't know that she's going to be found alive. Honestly, I think that if she's not, I just hope that she is returned to the family in whatever state that is, because the not having her through this whole thing is the closure that people need. And she deserves to, if she's not alive, she deserves to be, buried and have a blessing. And good question. It would be a miracle, of course, but just still doesn't make sense. Like, what would she be doing for all this time? 20 days is a long time. You're right. And you know what? There was actually another kidnapping of a woman or a man who was kidnapped. I don't remember the exact details, but the kidnapper, they actually paid for a nurse. Like, they had this person somewhere where she was fed and they had a nurse, and they can get medicine in Mexico depending on what prescription she needs to take. If she told them what she needed, they could go to a Mexican pharmacy and get medication without a prescription. So they could be taking care of her. They could have a nurse. Even though she lived alone, she probably didn't need a nurse. If she's being fed and being given her medication, she could just be being kept at a safe house. Maybe she's got TV, but she has no way of contacting anyone. She could be in the middle of nowhere. So she could, but I wonder what the family's doing this whole time. Think about it. Annie cannot go back to her house. TV is still camped out around Nancy's house and probably Annie's house. They're in a gated community in Scottsdale. Supposedly, Savannah Guthrie's husband was seen coming into the Tucson airport. I mean, these people are being held captive too. I mean, at what point do you say, I'm going home? I need something normal. This isn't looking good. I've been through trauma. Savannah, Cameron, and Annie are going to need an entire amount of therapy when this is done, regardless of the turnout. They're going to need therapy for a very long time. Savannah we're hearing, is questioning whether she should go back to the Today Show, because I think she feels guilty that it's because of her that this has happened, because of her celebrity. And just be afraid of the public. I mean, these people are traumatized, scarred, PTSD. I mean, if this is for money, the things that don't make sense about a kidnap for ransom is the kidnapper has not made it easy to be communicated back from the family. That's why, I don't know, nothing makes sense. I was talking through this with my husband. He's like, but if it was a robbery, da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, but they didn't do this, this, and this. Okay. If it's a robbery gone wrong, and let's just say that they red-rummed Nancy by accident, why not just leave the body? Why would you take the body? If it's a robbery gone wrong, still, why would they take Nancy alive? Don't understand. If it's kidnapped for ransom, why take Nancy, the 84-year-old who can't walk and is on medication? Why not take Annie? If it's a kidnap for ransom because of Savannah Guthrie, knowing she's got money, why not take Annie, the one who isn't going to need medication and can actually walk? If it's a kidnap for ransom, where do these weird ransom notes that don't make any sense, don't follow the playbook for kidnap for ransom? Nothing makes sense. And hence why people are going goo goo gaga over this story, and everything is leaking because we want answers. We want something to make sense. And there's nothing about this story that makes sense. And that's why you've got media camped out. And anytime they hear anything, they're leaking it because we're not hearing anything. So anyway, that is kind of my thing. I still think that there's someone involved close to the family. I hope we get answers. I hope that they crack. I hope I'm completely wrong. Okay. I hope my assumptions are completely wrong and that they figure this out. And like I said, I just want Nancy returned to her children in whatever way that is. I hope that the family can somehow get closure and heal from this. It's going to take a long time. But I really appreciate everybody coming in today so much. You guys are my crunchies. You guys are my little crime crunchies. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I know I've been yakking this whole time, but please subscribe and like and comment. It does help the algorithm. I am a new channel. I am going to be out at CrimeCon in May. I can't wait to go out to CrimeCon. I am hoping to run into some of my crunchies. Thank you so much for just being here and being a crunchie. I hope you all have a great day, and we will be back very soon. All right, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.